This is meteorologist Robb Ellis with your first alert weather.
All right, I have a lot of information for you. I'm going to try to go through it, answer all the questions that you may have about Hurricane Irene as it moves now to the north. That's some good news because if you just draw a line due north, that would put it at its current forecast impact point here. Any deviation now to the east would pull it away from the coastline. But I want you to take a look at how big this storm is. It is a huge storm, and some of the outer bands will begin to approach just a little bit faster because of the size of the storm. There you can see it a little bit closer in. The eye wall has been appearing and reappearing here and there. Looks like a little bit of restructuring trying to undergo. We haven't seen the wind speeds increase, but we have seen the pressure go down. So between now and probably about, let's say midday tomorrow, we may see this strengthen just a little bit. And that is the current forecast for at least a little bit of strengthening, but likely to maintain its Category 3 status. That's not to say it can't become a Category 4, but there is that possibility. Let me walk through some of the threat assessments for each county. I'm going to show you some rainfall amounts. I got a lot to show you here. For New Hanover County, you're going to see some gusty winds. This would be Friday overnight and through Saturday. Much of Saturday is going to be dealing with this because it's going to be slow to move on by. Remember, it's a big storm. It's going to take a long time to get all of it out of here. Gusty winds as much as up to hurricane force, that's 74 miles an hour. 4 to 7 inches of rain are going to be possible. The beach communities are likely to see some wind gusts up over 75 miles an hour. There's going to be huge waves, as Ashley Kozakowski was mentioning, a lot of high surf. You know the drill with this, when you have one of these storms offshore, it's just a mess along the coast. A lot of beach erosion is going to occur here. All right, for Pender and Onslow, I'm getting very concerned about Onslow County. You may, if some of the models hold true, get very close to the eye wall. Even though the bad side is way up the coast, you're still going to be close enough to the eye wall to have some intense gusts, maybe even up over 80 miles per hour. 5 to 9 inches of rain is going to be possible. You're going to see some coastal flooding, some significant erosion there. As we head down to Brunswick County, not quite the effects. You have the benefit here that your coastline is facing south, so the winds, even once they do come off to the east, that may back up some water into Pender County and into New Hanover County, but for Brunswick County it's actually going to be offshore. You'll still see some wind speeds approaching hurricane force with some gusts, and you won't see quite as much rain, but you're still going to see some effects from this, some pretty good effects at times. Tropical storm force winds are expected for Bladen and Columbus. That's 39 miles per hour or higher, and you could see some rain with some of the heavier squalls that move through, as much as maybe 3 inches of rain. Again, there's going to be a huge variation depending upon the way the rain band's set up. Just to reiterate, 115 miles per hour, this pressure has gone down. Here's a little bit of good news, moving north at 13 miles per hour, but that is expected to continue, and maybe even a couple of little wobbles here back and forth to the west, but it does look like impact as a Category 3, that's the forecast, along somewhere along the Crystal Coast. There's still an area of uncertainty, and some of the models are still pulling this to the west. If this does shift to the west, it is going to change the ball game in a big way. Of course, it'll move through North Carolina and then head into the northeast. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the northeast impacts because I just don't have it. Here's the model suite. Most of the models, if you go right down the center of them, you go right into Emerald Isle. But look at how many of these are clustered back to the west. And these are some of our more reliable models that have shifted back and forth and back and forth. Has me very concerned, especially when some of these continue to trend west. When the 0Z, what we call the 0Z models come in, that's the ones that come in late at night, I'm going to watch to see if these shift to the west. If that happens, you can bet that they're going to switch that track a little bit farther to the west for that 5 a.m. advisory. And we'll probably start to see some things change with respect to evacuations. But at this point, we're going to assume that we are right down the middle of that line and that the current forecast track holds. A little bit of good news here is that that north turn has begun. That's some sign that, yeah, this is starting to get picked up. It's also starting to accelerate just a little bit. We've talked a little bit about the dangers. People asking, well, what side of the storm is worse than the other side? 4 dangers that you need to think about. Winds, we always talk about the winds. You saw this with Hurricane Fran. There's also a surge threat, some flooding threat from some heavy rains and tornadoes. Let me walk through each one. As far far as the winds are concerned, the east side is going to be the side that's going to be a little bit worse. Now, you can still have some very strong winds on the west side, but they're much smaller. Most of this, because you compound it with the forward motion, are going to be on that right side. It also has a large wind field, and the speed of the storm is going to play into that. The storm surge, well, remember, the winds come around the storm, so at some point, some of this water may begin to back up in this kind of a bowl shape that you see into the New River Inlet. But for the most part, it's this right side that's the bad side that's going to have higher surge. There's a lot of things that go in here into storm surge, including the shape of the coastline, where exactly it makes landfall, how fast the storm is moving. That also plays a role in the flooding. The speed of the storm is the biggest factor here. The faster it moves on through, the less rain you're going to see. If it's moving slow, eastern North Carolina is going to get a lot of rain. That's what happened with Floyd. Good news here with respect to tornadoes, it's typically that right front quadrant. That right front quadrant is going to be offshore for most of the time that this is moving through, but you can't completely rule out the possibility of a tornado. Let me talk about timing with this. By noon tomorrow, we're going to see some scattered showers, but the heaviest rain bands will probably not arrive until sunset, and this model has actually shifted a little bit to the west as well, bringing that eye very close, but keeping New Hanover, Brunswick, and Pender County in some very heavy rain and some gusty winds for almost an entire day here, at least on Saturday. You saw some of the hour-by-hour winds go by. This is our low-end model. Let me show you the high-end model here as some of the winds really begin to pick up, and you're going to see some impressive numbers here. Again, this is the high-end model. I'm giving you a range of what you can expect. There's some variability here, and it looks like things may change. Again, eastern North Carolina going to deal with the heaviest rains, but there's going to be a big, steep drop-off. While Jacksonville may get 9 inches of rain, you head over into Whiteville, you may just barely get an inch. You change the track, you change this gradient, a lot can change there. I did want to mention the tides on Saturday for both the south and the east-facing beaches. They're going to occur high tide about 6 a.m. That's going to be a critical time frame. By the time we get to 6 p.m., it looks like the high tide will be picking back up again, but the winds should be offshore. So it's that early morning tide that we are most concerned about. All right, there's my 7-day forecast. Let me go ahead and show you that because once the storm rolls through, you want to know about cleanup. What can I do? How's the weather going to be to get back to wherever I need to get back to? There you see the numbers. Probably a hot day on Sunday. This does look like a daytime landfalling hurricane. Haven't seen many of those in recent years. I believe with both Fran and Floyd and even Hugo, those hit overnight.
Fran and Floyd did. I remember those. They came in the height of darkness, early in the morning.
And Hugo hit right at the stroke of midnight in Charleston. So we don't have too many that have hit during the day.
A lot of people new to the area have moved. This is their first big storm. They got to be prepared.
And one of the things I remember most about Hurricane Fran is at this time, back then, the storm looked like it was going in one direction, and then
it changed.
In a few hours, it changed
There's a
significantly.
lot that can still change. Got to watch this one carefully.
Thank you, Rob.
Yep.